Perfecto, muchas gracias, muy buenos días.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Welcome to the last day of CapiLAC 2022. It is a pleasure for us to welcome you all. And before introducing myself, I would like to give you some logistic instructions. First of all, I wanted to announce that we have simultaneous interpretation. It is very easy to choose a language. At the bottom of your screen, you will find a globe icon, or if you are with a phone, it will be at the top of your screen. Click on the icon and select the language of your preference. We will give you a few seconds to make these adjustments. Ahora se los diré.
Choosing the language is very simple. At the bottom of your screen, if you are in a PC, or at the top of your screen, if you are in a cell phone, you will find a globe icon. By clicking on it, you will choose the language of your preference. We will give you a few seconds so you can adjust your preferences. I'm going to switch to Spanish. Segundo, pues los invitamos a que participen.
Next, we invite you to participate in this event. CapiLAC is yours. You can ask your questions by using the Q&A icon, which is also in the lower part of your screen. And in the chat, which is at the right of your screen, you shall see interesting information and relevant information. If you are working on a cell phone, you will see some dialog boxes. And we will send you the link to all the materials and presentations, documents, and the bios of our presenters and moderators. This will all be uploaded to the web and available to our audience. Finally, we would like to request your help with the satisfaction survey, with your comments and with your opinions, which are the only way for us to improve on the next CapiLAC. My name is Diego Herrera. I am leader specialist in financial market of the Inter-American Development Bank. And in order to finish this CapiLAC, it is fundamental to thank our friends from FIAB, the Inter-American Exchange Federation, and ACSDA, the America's Securities Deposit. And this is the third day. As you know, we will be talking about technology, but the entire event has been prepared with the intention to finance sustainably the productive sector from the capital markets. The bios of all the panelists will be available in the link to this event. Today, we will talk about a very interesting subject, We have two very, very interesting panels. During the first one, we will talk about digitalization of the capital market. We have special guests who will present, and the moderator will be my colleague, Gabriela Andrade, who is a leader specialist in the Division of Connectivity, Markets and Finances of the IDB. As I do, she works on fintech, financial inclusion, and of late, she has specialized in gender issues in the financial sector and in digital transformation. We have been working with her over the past few years, and we welcome her once again to our team. Gabi, I give you the floor, and thank you so, so much, because I know that you are making an extra effort since you're now on a mission to Honduras. So thank you so much. Please go ahead. Thank you so much, Diego.
Of our panel. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to today's panel, the first one of today's session, in which we'll be discussing how technology is impacting regional capital markets, but importantly, how the industry is reacting to this actually very quite fast transformation we are experiencing. And to have complete and broad perspectives of this discussion, we are delighted to have three panelists that represent different aspects, different parts of the capital markets in the region. So I would like to welcome Javier Jara, President of the Association of Securities Depositories of the Americas. Joao Pedro Nascimento, President of the Securities and Exchange Commission of Brazil. Bruno Peroni, representing kind of the private sector industry, partner and institutional sales at Warren, Brazil. So to start our discussion, we're gonna begin with short presentations by each of our panelists, and then we'll have a discussion about the different aspects that they presented. So I think we're gonna start with Javier.
Yes.
Yes. So Javier, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
And please
Wow.
go ahead.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. Sorry, but I going to make this presentation in Spanish, so I'm going to switch to Spanish to do it. And also, otro disclaimer que quisiera hacer es que esta presentación.
I would like to let you know that this presentation on technology is going to be focused on everything we are doing in Chile. It's more in the Central Securities Deposit of Chile. So this is on Chile, not on the region. Speaking about technology, today I have the feeling that more than ever, this is a very relevant issue in capital markets. And the reason is that today, this is not only a technology which can accelerate or turn our processes more efficient, part of the technology which is inundating today represents a change in the business models. But this is not the only aspect. We also have to face threats on cybersecurity, and everything we're going to say today about cloud, blockchain, artificial intelligence, amongst others. Everything with regard to tokenization, digitalization of assets, and there is also a pressure to reduce costs. We are facing the CSDs in the region, which are threatened, or perhaps it's not a threat, it's an opportunity. They could be vertical or horizontal. And sometimes there have been some very interesting initiatives for a regional integration, and also regulatory supervision, which is very demanding. How are we going to reply? We, the DCV, the CSDs, we need to adapt. We need to make the corresponding changes, and otherwise we shall see our survival being threatened, as I have said. I would just, before starting to speak about the Chilean market, I would like to show you how in ACSDA we have been worrying and working on this issue. This is a sample of the documents that we have been preparing, and other documents which have been requested by members of ACSDA, where we are saying how in the CSD we will face these changes, especially when we see the threat of blockchain, which represents a situation which requires to move on in a certain direction. So I wanted to give you a vision about how we've been doing this in the case of Chile. Next, first activity together with the Santiago Stock Exchange and a technological company called GDB, we prepared a consortium to prepare a blockchain platform. This ecosystem, which we have structured, which we have visualized as an alternative, has allowed us to prepare a platform where different developers can make this available and also commercialize or sell it. These are some elements of the platform. What this building of this platform means with the tools which are necessary for software development, the governance of this ecosystem, where we have, of course, thought about how to administrate the keys, some algorithms, rules for data protection, rules on ownership of what can be developed and made available in the region. And finally, creating a business network which will allow for people to have access to different institutions of the financial or capital markets in Chile. Here we are showing how we, which are in the lower part, are creating the architecture and structure to develop these applications. And in the second level, all developers can put their applications to make them available, and then those who require these services can use them. This is for us a challenge because it is a business. The Santiago Stock Exchange and us as CSDs want this to be a network which is usable, which can generate benefits and profit, and it is also a learning experience for the institutions which belong to the consortium. This has not only helped us to learn about the technology over the past 3 years, and we can also use our own applications which we have developed in blockchain technology. Next, we have developed locally a system which is an administration of shareholders' boards, and we do this through apps that are on this infrastructure, and this shows how what we have learned has resulted in practical results. The exchange also has new elements in its infrastructure, and this project is part of a learning effort because all the institutions who wish to participate with this new technology need to learn. And as from this space, we can see which uses can be implemented. Next, please. I would like to point out that Chile had a partnership with NASDAQ, and this has allowed us to transform and develop our platform and local software in a world-class application. This effort lasted for 2.5 years, and finally we had a successful launch. It was a big bang. All our participants were included in this new technology. This almost happened overnight. So we started putting all the securities depositories on this platform, including over 2,000 participants. The key elements in this process were our vision, and also for some security depositories, stock exchanges, clearance institutions. This means that we need to have an interinstitutional panel at the NASDAQ level, but the vision to try to have a panel that is a first level, which is essential for smaller entities who do not have the possibility to have technological development. Next, the idea is that we consolidated this alliance with NASDAQ for Chile represents a big success, not only for the launching of the progress, but also in the search for new solutions. And I would like to bring to your attention a project which is very relevant for securities depositories, which is create a digital platform for blockchain, which allows us to use the record of the first digitalized records, and then in a next stage, they will be able to interact with secondary markets and will incorporate other players in the financial market. This project started a couple of years ago. We developed this with the Central Bank of Chile, which is also relevant in this kind of project, to try a partnership with the relevant institution. In our case, it's the central bank, which operates with the CSD, and they were with us in this project. And as of there, we started creating what we call this digital CSD. And for the first time, we were able to record bonds in a digital platform, and our project, which is already being developed and which we hope to launch this year, will not only allow us to work with corporate and central bank bonds, but also other corporations, public or private. This is our medium and long-term vision. This blockchain, which was going to be a private blockchain managed by us, and we hope not only have issuers, but also investors, regulators, and other players in the capital markets. I have very little time because I promise not to go beyond 8 or 9 minutes. In the case of Chile, we recently had the approval of the fintech law, which took about 4 years to be approved since we started discussing the projects. And finally, in last October, the Congress of the Republic approved the fintech project, which contains some elements with regard to its pillars: proportionality, neutrality, integrality, flexibility, and modularity. And it creates the roles of potential players with regard to the investment, collective financing, crowdfunding, and of course, the system of custody for issuers operating under this law. And this, in a way, represents an alternative. There are new payment systems, new investors who will be interested in working under this law, especially millennials and Generation Z, not big investors who will be looking for other alternatives. So these are new challenges, and the challenge for the institutions in the Chilean market are to pay attention to the opportunities and possibilities that this new legal framework allows us, but we should not remain passive, because if you do not propose something valuable, you can see their business die. So I am sharing the vision of how we're operating within the context of Chile. I am available to answer your questions and comments, and I let you give the floor to the other members of the panel.
I would like to highlight something you said, the importance of learning. You know, with the rapid technological change, we need to get our hands dirty and learn. Otherwise, we cannot understand this rapid technological change. And the other one is the importance of partnerships, whether it's the stock market, central banks, fintechs, and others. So that I will highlight from your presentation, and we will discuss later. But now, please, Joao, if you can start your presentation and your perspectives from the Security and Exchange Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure being here. Representing CVM is also a great opportunity to put light in Brazil, which is a solid market in Latin America. Can I just ask you to allow my share screen? Okay. I will try to be very quick, basically summarizing items in which CVM is trying to use technology so that we can have a more enhanced capital markets in terms of being modern and being friendly to the adoption of new technologies. First, I should say that basically a disclaimer, the opinions expressed herein are not exclusively representative of CVM. This is basically my personal opinion. And so we are basically discussing topic 4. I first should say that in CVM we have a lab, which is basically a laboratory for innovations in the financial field. We have great relationship with a lot of other houses that works along with us, and also we have the great support of the Banco Interamericano de Desenvolvimento. So this is an opportunity for us to say thank you. In this lab, we have recently produced some papers on the use of fintechs and the possibility of increasing new structures and things like that by adopting fintechs. And I would like you all to take a picture of the QR code that is in here. Basically, we are talking about tokenization. We understand crypto is something that is evolving rapidly all over the world. In Brazil this week, we had the approval of the bill, the act, the law that will govern crypto in Brazil. So now it's only pending the sanction, the final approval by the president of the country. As soon as we have this approval, there will be the appointment of the regulatory agency that will be responsible for governing, supervising crypto. CVM is certainly in the field for that, on wherever crypto that falls into the prescription of a security, and I will talk later on about that. But in addition to this crypto discussion, it's also important that we keep in mind that tokenization is something that is a trend for near future. All sorts of securities, shares from public owned corporations and things like that, within near future, they will be tokenized and they will be managed within a decentralized ledger technology. Blockchain is innovative and will create a lot of opportunities. So this study basically show how local rules on market infrastructure could fit within this DLT-driven innovation. We have a very successful Sandbox, which is an experimental regulatory environment in which we kind of give waivers from certain regulatory requirements for people willing to develop innovative and bringing creative into the capital markets. We have a lot of programs now, but one of those that I would like to emphasize discusses the idea of bookkeeping using crowdfunding platforms. And the other one that I would like to put light on it is one that uses tokenization so that we can have OTCs basically following the tokenization. In near future, I'm quite convinced that with the use of DOTs, a lot of the functions of the post-trade market will be replaced by the DLTs. There will be no need for clearing houses and things like that, because the technology will already provide something cleared for the final users. Within the scope of the crypto discussion, recently our CVM has released the guidance, which is Parecer de Orientação number 40 in this year 2022. Basically, this is a guidance of what kind of crypto falls into the description of a security. Knowing that, we are kind of at the first moment following the very famous say from Louis Brandeis, trying to put sunlight, trying to put like bringing to the disclosure requirement the crypto industry. If you take a look, for example, on the crypto, the white papers of a lot of those cryptos being offered, they're so complex for understanding. We are looking for an accessible, user-friendly language so that everyone can understand. But I would like to dedicate my final minutes to the approach of technology that we are trying to put here at CVM. I have just started my 5-year tenure. I'm in place for the last 6 months. I have arrived at a CVM that was so, let's say, I don't even know how to say this in a polite manner, but we were totally lack of actualizations, up to dates, and things like that. So we had no Wi-Fi connection. We had no Wi-Fi infrastructure in the building. I made a priority of raising the bar, so we made a huge investment on technology. We are willing to prepare CVM to be a RegTech, a regulator that uses also technology in the world that discusses fintechs, agrotechs, edutechs. I understand that the regulator has to be more technological also. Within these innovative solutions that we are bringing, we have now a cooperation agreement with the Supreme Audit Agency, the TCU, so that we can have more information and we can use market surveillance by using analytics softwares, crossing information on the available public data so that we can use for monitoring insider tradings, market manipulations, and things like that. Tech may be a tool for increasing the ability of our agency to make the surveillance of activities that came to be supernatural. For example, the use of the social media network, there's so much information down there that if I don't use an analytic or something like that for processing natural language, it's so hard that I can do it by basically following human resources. So we have just received an award from the FINEP. Some of the initiatives that we were trying to develop were accepted by the government. So within the near future, you're gonna see a lot of more techs being used in the capital market. The first one that I would like to put light on it is the analytics for natural language processing. Imagine how much language, how much information is produced on day-to-day basis on the social media network. Imagine that we can have a tech, an app to supervise, to make the surveillance and cross this information with market manipulations, market trades, insider tradings and things like that. You're gonna have like a more technological regulatory agency being able to do more work with more quality in less time. We have now a collaboration with Twitter and with a lot of other aggregators of big data. The idea is surveilling and overseeing Twitter messages and seeing how they impact the capital market. For example, someone saying that, oh, there is a good investment to be made. There is any connection between this person and the market trades going after that. And basically, we also cross this information with related parties, members, parents, and things like that. And that's the reason why we need the cooperation of the TCU, which is the audit supervisor. What I am saying, we now also have simplifying the life of the users of the capital market. So we have now a all-in-one registration procedure for funds. Whenever you ask for the registration of a fund, a mutual fund, the registration goes along with the registration of the corporate taxpayer registry, which is a kind of a social security of the fund. So I'm basically saying that if you want to keep it tech, to keep it simple, I mean, Steve Jobs, when he designed all the infrastructure for Apple, the idea was to make it very simple for everyone to use. So we are trying to do the same in terms of the capital market, simplifying the life of the users and trying to cross-reference with technology. This is basically the word, and I stop here, being also available for questions and answers afterwards. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Joao, and many things to highlight from your presentation, but one that really stuck was the one that how technology change, technological advance is changing the institutional structures, both public and private. As you mentioned, Brazil is going to create a new regulatory agency for crypto, and how you mentioned that technology and DLTs are going to change the post-trade institutions. So that was very interesting. Thank you very much. And to finalize, Bruno Peroni with his view from the private sector. Please, Bruno, go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for the invitation to be here representing Warren, and a little bit I'll give you an overview of Warren, of our I think our scope of work here in Brazil, trying to innovate in the investing market, and I'll just share my screen with you just to show you a quick presentation. Great. So basically, and the idea is to have, I think, like the broad view that we had here from the regulators, and now I'll try to give you an on the field view and scope of how we are applying technology to innovating in the investing tech market. So basically, Warren is I'm responsible for relationships with institutional investors at Warren, and also a partner at the company. And I'm here basically to give you. I'll start giving an overview of Warren, and then talking a little bit more about our innovation pipeline that definitely crosses with the other panelists' views and opinions. And so basically, what is Warren? Warren is in a nutshell, is a professional wealth management service and app for everyone. Basically, we bring the business model that is applied and the view and the model that is applied to ultra high net worth individuals and family offices, and we bring that using technology to every investor, and to also even small retail investors. And so basically, we offer. The company was started in 2017, and basically what we offer is a unique investment opportunity and an experience, which basically is we offer automated and diversified investment portfolios. Basically, we see ourselves as leading the investment 3.0 movement. So we have what we call here internally the traditional investing done through retail banks, which is investment 1.0. that is single brand, usually done by few proprietary products, and having several perverse incentives that not always the banker that is doing the relationship with the customer usually refers the best products, because they're usually only allowed only to offer the products that are from the big brand. Then we had in Brazil a second wave in the innovation of investment platforms, that basically we had like we started these open investment platforms that were pioneered by brokers, that by new brokers enter the market, and then basically these new open investment platforms in the independent asset managers started to be created, and then we had a huge a wave of innovation in the market. And but then you have other sorts of problems. You still had a commission-based model for the brokers to recommend products for their customers. So there's still still a perverse incentive to recommend products that paid a higher commission and a higher rebate, and usually this was not very transparent. And also you had the problem of having too many products. Then now in these open platforms, sometimes you have several hundreds of investment funds, for example, to pick. Then that's exactly where we start. So basically, Warren is we are based. We have two main innovations. One is that we focus on recommended portfolios and managed portfolios for our customers that are created by our investment team and select the best products. But at the same time, with a flat management fee model that is the same model, the same business model that is used in multifamily offices and private and professional investors and wealth managers. So basically, we basically are offering the same experience that is offered for the ultra high for all investors, including retail investors, and based on automated and rebalanced investment portfolios. So basically, we have a very interesting approach using technology, which is having a goal-based investment system where customers can create based on their investment suitability, based on their investment profile, and based on their liquidity needs, and on their stage of their lives. They're able to create these personalized investment plans, and also the main it's a simple change, but a very radical change of charging only a flat fee on customers' assets under management, and we believe that is really important, because we are then motivated to always recommend the best available products. So basically, our company, we have all this is mediated through an online platform and also an app where customers can access and create the managed portfolios. But also we have direct access to stock trading on the Brazilian Stock Exchange. We also developed a savings account where customers can concentrate all their assets in one platform, and they can even pay bills directly from Warren's app. And we are doing the pilot phase of adding offshore investments within the same app. So we'll be one of the few investment institutions in Brazil that will have in the same app you will have access to the Brazilian market, but also be able to, in a partnership with Apex, we are offering the opportunity for customers to do their foreign exchange, do their conversion to dollars, and invest directly in the American stock market. And so we started as a retail-only platform, and then we evolved into a complete financial ecosystem. We are regulated. We have 3 licenses that make us that are important for us to offer these services to our customers. We have an asset management license and also a prime brokerage license in Brazil, regulated by CVM. And we also have a payment institution license regulated by the Brazilian Central Bank that allow us to offer these basically the banking infrastructure. But nowadays we also are developing really strongly the institutional side of the business as well, not only the retail, because we believe we'll have a more complete offering and we'll be able to offer for our customers the best, always the best financial products available. And just to give you a sense of the size and the scope of Warren, today we have 120,000 active customers in the platform, and we just reached this year $4 billion under management, which represents a little bit over 20 billion reais. And we use our technology to daily rebalance and calculate and process almost 1 million different investment portfolios, because one customer can have multiple investment portfolios. For example, one for a short-term goal, and also to manage their reserves, but also a long-term pension plan, and also another also wallet, a portfolio for their stock investments, etc. So we grew very fast in the last few years by organic and inorganic growth. We are really glad to be invested by some of the best venture capital investors of fintechs, not only in the region but in the world, and this is super important for our rapid growth. And last but not least, I'll give you a quick that I can definitely go into more detail in the Q&A, but I'll give you a glance of our innovation pipeline. We're always working on enhancing our goals-based investing, AI, and trying to implement AI methodologies as well to suggest specific portfolios for specific goals, and also smart rebalancing. We also are working on a tool for smart liquidity management for customers. We just acquired a company in the beginning of this year, also that is very focused on portfolio consolidation across institutions. So this will be very important and has a lot of connection with the open finance movement, that will be able to access information of the customer's assets, managed not only that are custodied by custodied by Warren, but also other financial institutions. And we're also working on the PIX integration, which is the instant payment infrastructure of Brazil, that will allow our customers to add funds to their accounts at any time of the day. We're also following very closely the crypto asset movement and trend. We have a team working on trying to develop that is looking into asset tokenization, especially we are in touch with some of the projects that Mr. Nascimento mentioned that are in the Sandbox, that are using asset tokenization as a way of reducing intermediaries, costs, etc. How can we integrate that into our platform? And also what is the best way to give access to our customers into crypto assets, and especially Web3. Because crypto assets, we fortunately in Brazil, we have a very we have a great and very forward-looking regulatory framework that we are one of the first countries in the world that have a and openly traded ETFs. Actually, we have almost 10 ETFs now in the crypto sector. And last but not least, we're always working on security and advanced suitability protocols and biometric approval to enhance security. That is also always a huge threat. I think I'm a little bit delayed on the time, but I hope it was a quick overview of our work here, Warren. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bruno, for your presentation. Now we're gonna move to the discussion questions. Since we only have about 15 minutes, I'm gonna kind of mix the questions I had with some of from our audience that they've put in the chat. And I will appreciate it if each one of you will answer in about 3 to 4 minutes max the questions, or less, so we can have more further discussions. So I will start with Javier. Javier, during your presentation, you mentioned many interesting things, but one that is very interesting for the IDB and for many people in your audience, which is regional integration. So how do you see technology, digital transformation, tokenization, and the role of the securities depositories to facilitate cross-border securities? Something that has been traditionally very challenging. Please, Javier. I think you are on mute.
Sorry, I was mute. Bueno, a ver, yo diría que antes de
I would say that before promoting a solution in the regional integration models that we're seeing, I believe that Central America and Latin America is in a phase where we need to understand the technology to find local solutions. And based on this, we should perhaps try to find an alternative for the regional integration models. I am, of course, familiar with the integration between the exchanges of Peru, Colombia, and Chile. It is an ambitious project for integration, and technologically, this is very important for trading and post-trade as well. I believe that João was mentioning that blockchain potentially will be a threat to the traditional way of dealing with post-trade, and the way we familiarize ourselves with technology will help us in these regional integration projects to find a more robust and safe solution, with scalable one. Part of the AUNA project was developed together with this stock exchange. So there is a learning curve and implementation of the first solutions, but I am certain that these technologies will help us in this integration process. There is another project in Central America, which is potentially studying integration from the technological point of view. So I believe that this is something that is being developed, but first we have to start locally, and then we need to go on to the integration processes. Thank you so much.
So since you presented your case, Chile is well advanced. Is there any single important recommendation that you will give to other countries or regions that are not so advanced, how they will start? Anything that your lesson learned from you to them?
En el caso de nuestra experiencia, y tú lo resumiste muy
In our
bien.
experience, and you summarized it very well, a challenge is to learn technology and also people that know the business. There are experts on artificial intelligence, blockchain, and tokenized assets exist, but we have a challenge because first we need to train teams that have the technical knowledge, but that should also know the business. And based on this, we should see what is the reality of each institution. I know P3 in Brazil, which is a great institution, but in our region, there are small depositories, small exchanges, and for them, it can be very costly to develop on their own. So the partnership with some relevant institutions on the technological aspects is key. So my recommendation is that medium and small size corporations should have alliances with a fintech. I'm not necessarily talking about Warren, but there are other fintechs which could cooperate in the development of technology and bring the knowledge of each institution, knowledge about the business. That would be my recommendation. Thank you so much. That is fantastic. Javier, João.
Across the three presentations, if there's one single word that we saw over and over again was tokenization, right? Because technology is about one big part is tokenization. So I wanted to ask you from the regulator perspective, from the supervisor perspective, can you give us information on what type of tokenizations will be authorized? And as someone asked in the chat, what are the stages? What are the stages to implement this regulation from your point of view? Thank you.
Well, this is a very good question. When we talk about the securities regulator, when we talk about regulation, regulation is a broad scope of a lot of small features in which CVM works. One of them is whenever we are able to issue and release rules. It's the normative function, is the function whenever you rule something, okay? To rule something, you first need a mandate, a law giving you like more opportunities so that you can work beyond the initial perspective. So with this recent rule that was passed this week, but it is still subject to the final approval of the president, whenever it comes out, I think we're gonna start having more rules on tokenization. CVM will take care of tokenization within the field of the securities. And this is important because a lot of the securities, even those within the traditional capital market like shares, within near future, it is quite possible that they're gonna be tokenized. And when I say that, whenever you bring the traditional capital market within the tokenization field, you amplify the measures within which rights can be exercised. CVM, when we dialogue with the use of technology, our effort is always to include technology as a way to solve an existing problem in the traditional world, but also as a measure to amplify horizons in which rights can be exercised. So I should say that within 1 or 2 years, tokenization will be stronger. Tokenization will be used both for cryptos, but also for the traditional capital market. Whenever we bring the traditional capital market within the DLTs, within the distributed ledger technology, within the blockchain. So I can't anticipate how long it will take, but I would envisage 1 or 2 years. And I think CVM will give a great contribution to our country.
Thank you, Joao. And similarly, the same question follow-up that I asked Javier, is the same for you. For all the other securities regulators and supervisors in the region, what would you recommend to start focusing in this path, given the lessons learned from the CVM?
First thing to say is dialogue. It's a moment in which we need to dialogue. A lot of those challenges that we are facing in Brazil with crypto and with tokenization, they are not exclusively to our country. So I would say that we need more dialogue within the Americas. And I should also say that we have an institute, which is the Instituto Interamericano de Mercado de Valores Mobiliarios, in which Brazil is also participating, and we have a very important position. I think we should improve dialogue. This is a cross-border challenge, and I think we all should come together to discuss this. Brazil is probably the bigger market in Latin America, so that we can also provide people with the learns, with the experiences that we have learned recently. And I am totally open to dialogue.
Thank you very much, Joao. I completely agree. And for the IDB, this type of these regional discussions like CapiLAC, that's why it's so important for us, and that we try to provide these venues and these platforms for discussions and for exchanging lessons learned. Thank you very much, Joao. Now I'm gonna go to Bruno. Bruno, so I'm gonna mix up some questions for you. Besides stocks, what other assets can users operate in the platform? Another one is, are any measures that you're taking within the platform to protect consumers? And related to this, for retail investors, does Warren have a regulatory obligation to profile investors? Since the products you are offering are relatively sophisticated. Please go ahead.
Great. I'll start with the last one. Yes, we are currently required to profile investors. That's really important. And recently there was a change that we quickly adapted in the suitability demands from the regulator. And so basically we do a very important suitability analysis. We are required, but we also go a little further. We have 5 different investment profiles that we created internally, and based on that we recommend different investment portfolios. So this is a very important topic for us, because being a fee-based asset manager, we are very incentivized to have long-term relationships with our customers, and not only to recommend the product that is in fashion today. For example, today is stocks, tomorrow is now currently in Brazil is like is bonds, because it's paying higher. Anyway, but so we are very incentivized in recommending a diversified portfolio and doing a very deep suitability analysis, so people are not so customers are prepared when there is volatility, and also prepared for the lack of liquidity or longer times of liquidity of their different portfolios. And also going to the second question, that is which types of assets. So our recommended portfolios, they include stocks, but they also include bonds. So and special, and we really believe in having and investing in funds, through funds. So our asset allocation team was awarded one of the best fund selectors in Brazil, because of their main job is to basically select fund managers and recommend and look at asset allocation as a whole, not only that specific asset, but also but customers can also access the assets directly. So for example, if a customer wants to buy a private bond from Petrobras or Vale, they are able to do that in our open platform. They also can buy an individual stock, an individual bond, or even public debt. So they can invest directly into products, but our approach usually is to create a diversified portfolio and for them based on their suitability requirements. And I believe, with the third question, that is how we protect customers. I believe that we have the suitability, but then we have our platform in terms of stock trading is very prepared for that, in order to not allow mistakes or things like that. We have alerts for people that are doing trades that are bigger than their suitability, and also we believe that the best protection is to understand and having a diversified portfolio. That's basically our approach.
Thank you, Bruno. There's many other questions also in the chat, but we only have 3 minutes left. So respecting the time, I would like to finish with a quick, what they call flash round. Because what it's clear now is that technology is advancing quickly, and we have to deal with it. There's no other way. But at this moment today, and from your perspective, from your institutions, do you see it more as a threat or as an opportunity, Javier?
In my opinion, it's an opportunity, but it's opportunity if you are alert, if you are working on that, because the opportunity could be there, but if you keep sitting in your chair, probably the opportunity is going to move to a threat. So I think it's an opportunity that you have to collaborate with the opportunity.
Fantastic. Joao, what about you?
It's a huge opportunity. I'm always saying that in Brazil, the future is green and digital. We should take a strong position on both the sustainable finance agenda and also on the digitalization agenda. They have a transversal relationship, and we should take good use of it so that we can put Brazil in a even better position within your future. Thank you for the opportunity, and please take a look at the work we are doing at CVM.
Thank you, Joao. Bruno?
Yeah, for us, definitely an opportunity. It's right to explore new technologies to provide always the best products and services to our customers. But we have to be really to take definitely a closer look to new technologies, because you should never be be in a comfortable position as a fintech, as an operator, because now we have asset tokenization and other waves of innovation coming to the wealth management and asset management area that we definitely need to have a closer look.
Thank you, Bruno. In the last minute, I would just like to highlight, I really like what Joao said, that for Brazil is green digital, the future. I think that's for the region. And I will add that on top of that green and digital future, if we ensure equality among everyone, the futures for the region will be even better. So with that, I thank you to all the panelists. Thank you for the organizers. It was a pleasure. And I hope we can continue this conversation another day, because clearly the audience have more questions and a lot of interest in this topic. With that, Diego, thank you very much. And
Gabriela, please keep in mind that when we say sustainable finance has to be inclusive. So I go pretty along with what you have said. So future is green and digital. And when we say green, we also, including the idea of being responsible in the social development.
Excellent. We're all aligned. Thank you so much, Joao.
Yeah. Pretty much aligned, Joao. Thank you very much to all our
Have
panelists.
A good one. Thank you.
Too.
Muchas
Thank
gracias.
you. And we might continue the conversation actually in fintech LAC first quarter next year. So we will invite you over for that event. But for now, I'm going to switch to Spanish. Y ahora vamos a hablar sobre.
We will now talk about the blockchain bond issued by Avivienda, purchased by IDB Group with the cooperation of Colombian authorities for its issuance. I was lucky enough to be a part of this group that went from the pre-issuing stage, issuance, negotiation, settlement, and fulfillment, and later settlement of the bond. It was a very complex and interesting process with lessons learned, plenty of lessons learned, and I decided not to be a part of the panel so I could give Ana Maria Zárate the chance to moderate it, for one reason, and also because we want this story to be told from the public's perspective by the IDB and IDB Invest, which initially led the operation, and from the perspective of the private sector in Colombia, and then from the perspective of the regulator as well, that loaned its Sandbox so we could make that blockchain bond pilot a reality. So I leave you with Ana Maria, And then after this panel, we'll have a couple of closing statements after this CapiLAC. And again, thank you to all our panelists. Go ahead, please, Ana Maria. Thank you, Diego. Welcome to this last panel of the day and of CapiLAC, the blockchain bond lessons learned. We'll look at a very specific example of the use of a new technology that is transforming markets. And as Diego said, we'll talk about this pilot project. It's very interesting. It was in the market, the securities market of Colombia, but it's relevant for all of Latin America. I just wanted to say about this project that, as Diego said, it's an example of a pilot that goes through the entire cycle of the bond issuance using blockchain technology. And then it was part of the financial superintendence's Sandbox, and thus left a lot of important lessons learned for the regulation as well of this type of innovation. And also there were different participants from various perspectives, and this is key, as we know, to the success of this type of project. Then we had the private sector, the issuer, and then which was Davivienda, then the financial superintendents, the Bank of the Republic, and then with the support of the IDB Group with 3 windows, a public window from the Treasury and the Division of Market Connectivity and Finances, then IDB Invest, the private arm, and also from our innovation lab, IDB Lab. With us, we have Alejandro Revey, Sandra Reyes, Catalina Guillo rather, and Ana Maria Zuluaga. And we will begin by briefly introducing the project, and then we will talk about lessons learned and challenges involved in the project. Alejandro Reveis, who will be speaking first, is the head of the Treasury and Middle Office and Banking at the IDB. And before that, he held various posts at the World Bank as well as at the Bank of the Republic. I'll give you the floor now, and then I'll introduce the rest of the panelists. Thank you very much, Ana Maria. I'd like to thank you, first of all, for this invitation. Greetings to all of the participants in the panel.
El panel anterior es realmente muy relevante para darnos el contexto de esta conversación. Si podemos
the way we did this is very important for the context of this conversation. Maybe the first slide. Next slide, please. So the previous conversation was very interesting because, as Javier had said, from Chile, this industry is growing and an entire ecology is being generated in this ecosystem of digital products. And Bruno Peroni also mentioned that it's important to think about investment 3.0, as they call it, and what are the market conditions that are necessary for this. What we found in the markets in the last few years is that beyond technology, technology has been invented, is quite consolidated at this point, I think. The big challenge now in terms of generating innovation in financial markets is trying to understand how we can insert that technology into current flows, current market processes. And to do that, we need to understand the payment systems that exist, technology, regulations, and regulations are extremely important. If you talk about people from MIT or Cambridge who are studying blockchain, the first thing they said is the huge difficulty is regulations. That's the first and complex step. And then there's something we've been seeing lately, what they call the anchor. What's going to be the anchor? It's the currency from the central bank in traditional markets. So the question is, are central banks going to issue digital currencies? This will make the market grow. There's the whole issue of scalability. Who are the participants? What incentives exist in the market? Bruno Peroni talked about fees, for example, who are the intermediaries, brokers, all that we need to look at. And what is very complex is to understand how you can, first of all, make sure that technology is aligned with the markets. How do I modify regulations and the behavior of the markets to adjust to the technology? But it's also even more important for people to buy into this new technology in the market. Sometimes change is complicated and market participants have no incentive to participate in it. So in this whole context where we need to look beyond technology, we and the whole group introduced just now by Ana Maria, what we did was to say, okay, how can we come up with a pilot for the issuance of a blockchain technology bond in Colombia, where we support the market. It's not just a financial transaction, that's the bond, that's it. No, how do we make sure that this helps develop Colombia's market? And that's why the first thing we did was to talk to the regulators. This started a long time ago in 2018. And the first thing we did was talk to regulators, the superintendents, the Ministry of Finance, the Bank of the Republic, etc. We had a conversation where we said we want this to be a process, as Gabriel Andrade was saying a while ago, that we can learn from, a process we can learn from. And the most important thing has been not just the technical possibility of using blockchain, as Diego said, all the way from pre-authorization to the fulfillment of the security to see if this really reduces costs and increases efficiency. But we also wanted to develop the institutional knowledge of the participants to see the scalability potential in our regular context. If regulators would say, yes, this makes sense, or what regulatory changes need to be made, does it make change from the market point of view and for which markets? And also the country, in Colombia in particular, with the mission that it has since 2019 to develop capital markets, it had to be aligned with that vision, and that had a fintech component to it. So that's why we started this project, which with a much broader view, not just a transaction. And we agreed with the superintendents, as Diego said, they very kindly agreed to give us the relevant regulatory exemptions so we could do this. And this is really important in this kind of project. So that was the reason why we started this project in this way. And the next step was what we did exactly. We can go on to the next slide. We did this blockchain bond, was the first one issued, placed, negotiated through blockchain technology with smart contracts in Colombia. It was the first one in Latin America as well, but our focus was the Colombian market. And the bond was one that was in the secondary market in Colombia, 110 million pesos, relatively small amount of money. But the idea was that it was only going to be done for 2 weeks for several reasons. So we wouldn't be affecting the accounting of everyone, but also because we wanted to ensure that we could see the entire cycle. If it's very long, then you have to wait a long time to see the ending of the cycle. And this was the first phase of a project that is a multi-phase project. And when we have our discussion with the panelists, we can tell you what we're thinking about for the future. It had a weekly payment according to Colombia's conventions. And it was a very simple bond for a very small amount. And it was issued by Davivienda. IDB Invest underwrote the whole issuance. This was in August of 2022. And the only part of the process that was outside of this was the cash payment that was done in the high value payment system of the Bank of the Republic. And then the confirmation of the payment was put into blockchain. And after that, fulfillment and all the other aspects of it happened in blockchain. But the cash aspect was something that we still couldn't manage. And we're looking to see in phase 2 how we can handle that. And it's the same difficulties and challenges that other issuers of blockchain bonds have encountered in other places, in Australia, for example. But that's what I was saying before, that anchor, the currency, that's what we need to decide how we're going to manage it. And then the pilot was authorized for the Sandbox of the superintendents. The blockchain platform recorded this. with complete traceability of the bond through blockchain technology. And that's the first step, as I said earlier, for the potential implementation of this technology in this way. And we're looking forward, thinking what other parts of the process can be included within this. This is the process, what I've described with a smart contract. We described the payments for the security. And what's important is that it was recorded in the National Securities Registration of the Financial Superintendents of Colombia and the Bank of the Republic. These participated with the blockchain network, and that aspect of registration and the valuation of the security title was done and was registered through blockchain. That's a very interesting thing. And then the issuance, the custody and purchase, all that was done in blockchain. And now we are thinking for the future of having IDB Invest be able to sell this bond to third parties. How can we broaden that market is what we're thinking now. In terms of technology, we use the LAC chain platform operated by Ethereum for the smart contracts. And the token we used was ERC721 for all steps from pre-emission to cancellation. Next slide, please. So what is the result of this proof of concept? What do we think has been the contribution? Well, first of all, I would say it was a successful. The authorization, issuance, negotiation, and fulfillment took place in blockchain. And it was also successful from the point of view that it was shown that the costs are lower and that you can generate certain operational advantages and cost benefits as well. As I said earlier, there was the aspect of the cash. The settlement was recorded in blockchain. We showed the possibility of having approval of pre-issuance documents and recording the security title in a more automated way. The existence of the Sandbox was something that made it possible to get the regulatory exemptions that we needed for the proof of concept. And as we said earlier, referring to what Gabriela Andrade had said, there's the huge importance of partnerships as a lesson learned. From the beginning, regulators were included. They were there as observers, and they took active part in the process in some cases as well. And this has generated a discussion in terms of understanding how the technology works and what regulatory changes would need to be made if we decided to scale this up. And the pilot showed the technical feasibility of the use of blockchain technology in a controlled environment with a single investor. We still need to work on scalability, taking into account what we were discussing earlier about market conventions, et cetera, that whole thing that was on the first slide I showed. From that holistic perspective, we need to think about a financial market and its operation and how this could fit into it. And there's something that we call last mile. How do you take this all the way to the end so users can actually take advantage of it? It's all something we always have to think about when we're talking about technological innovations. That's it for my presentation. Thank you very much. I'll give you the floor, Ana Maria. Thank you very much, Alejandro. This is a perfect segue into our conversation. I'd like to introduce Sandra Reyes, a lead investment specialist at IDB. She is the head of the institutional financial institutions unit for the Andean region, and she started working for IDB Invest in 2007, and she used to work in an investment bank in Colombia before. Would you tell us a little bit, in addition to cost efficiency benefits, the technology is famous for this as well, but what other benefits could we expect after the first use of a blockchain bond in the region? Hello. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Well, what other benefits does blockchain have in addition to efficiency and costs? Well, there's something that's key in capital markets, and it's a constant concern for all of us who participate in capital markets, and that's transparency. blockchain has some features that make significant contributions to transparency, and one of those is immutability. This allows us to organize the whole process into cryptographic units in the various blocks of the chain, and these cryptographic proofs or units means that they cannot be altered. What's stored there cannot be modified. If, for example, we wanted to make an edit to the processes in the platform, this would have to go through a consensus protocol, and it would be known by all of the participants. So everything that is stored, all the information that the investors would have access to, is accurate, legitimate information, which means that investors can make investment decisions in a secure way. The other characteristic is traceability, and that's something Alejandro was talking about. All the processes and the transactions that are stored, and in the case of the bond that was issued, all this information was stored from the moment that the authorization was requested with the securities institution, all the way to its issuance. Who was a part of it, who intervened, what did they do? All of this is recorded, and users can also see in real time the status and the process of the bond being issued. And regarding transparency, we can also talk about auditing. Because of the transparency, these processes are very easy to audit. And then there's a second point. I want to talk about access to information. It's a decentralized process. All the participating nodes have access to the same information. It's homogeneous information, and it's information that can be verified and accessed in real time, including every edit, every modification that is made. So we're talking about information packets. One goes to the superintendents, one's to the market, and the other one to the investors. We're not talking about separate packages. We're talking about homogeneous information for everyone. It eliminates asymmetry in information and gives confidence to the investors, who can now make financial decisions having all the most updated information, and it's the only information that's available for the entire process.
I want to speak about follow-up. This technology also allows, through smart contracts, to follow during the lifetime of the bond, to see how this can be reviewed periodically, how obligations of monitoring by institutions who are interested in monitoring. So the follow-up, in the case of theme bonds, there can be a monitoring of the use of the bonds, the impact of the use of the bonds, and also indicators of the social impact. So throughout the lifetime of the bond, it is possible to efficiently see what happened with the issuance. Next point, the reduction of intermediaries. Why? Because there are decentralized procedures where issuers and investors are directly put together with consensus protocols and with smart contracts, which allow for this direct relationship. So the roles that they will take on, and we heard this in the previous presentation, in the exchange, have to change, and those roles needs to change, because everything is kept safe under the same platform. The token is in the same place. So these roles have to change in order to benefit from the advantages that technology gives us. Finally, I want to refer to the democratization of capital markets, because you can design tokens of a very low nominal value or fractionable, so that individual investors may participate in these issuers, and so that smaller investors may be able to take advantage of all the advantages provided by technology and also the reliability, because in addition to safety, they will be able to participate in the capital markets. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandra. I will now give the floor to Catalina, who will tell us about what is going on in Da Vivienda. Catalina is the juridical director of innovation of Banco da Vivienda. She's a cum laude lawyer of the Universidad de los Andes, specialist in financial law, and also a master's from the University of Harvard. She was also superintendent in the procedimientos mercantiles in the Superintendencia de Sociedades of Colombia. Catalina, thinking about the future, can you please tell us which are the new options that Da Vivienda is exploring after this pilot program, which was so successful? Which other options are you thinking about in order to make good use of the new technologies? Thank you so much, Ana Maria. Thank you for the invitation to be here and tell us a little bit more about this project. To answer your question, I think that the first thing is to tell you that Da Vivienda is still working to change regulations and to obtain the regulation changes which will allow us to use new technologies such as blockchain and to use them on a regular basis in the Colombian capital markets, taking into account all the advantages and efficiencies that these new technologies provide. We have gone a long way to obtain this with the tests we did in the sandbox of the financial superintendency. We obtained an exemption so that we were able to stop applying some standards, and this were related to the registry and cancellation in the national registry, and also cancel some elements because these were using the new technology. Now it is a superintendency, and Ana Maria, without doubt, is going to tell us about it during her intervention. But there will be a regulatory change to use this new technology. Da Vivienda and all other players will be able to take advantage of this in Colombia. And as Alejandro said, there was a public bid, and this means that this was started in the primary market, but we still need to see what happens in the secondary market. So if we wish to use this technology at its full extent, which is what Da Vivienda wants, we need to test the secondary market and obtain a change in standards, which is an integral change, because if we're only taking into account in part of the market, then we're falling short. And I believe that regulators are interested in having a more integrated change. So as we have already announced, we are working in this new issuance on a second stage, which will allow us to have new participants, redefine some processes and roles in the secondary market. And with regard to what we have already said, the stock exchange is going to participate. This is different to what we have been used to, but this is in agreement with the technology and the transformations that are taking place in the world. In that way, we will have a more active role of the Banco de la República. As you saw during the presentation, the Banco de la República is an observer. They have observed the entire pilot, but what we want now is for the Banco de la República to have a more active role and act as controller of public accounts. We will do this in a new regulatory sandbox, which will not only include the financial superintendency, but also the financial regulatory unit. And this will allow us to expand the standards that we will examine, not only circular rules, but also decrease. And this could bring us to a successful result, have something that is integrated and can be used massively. In addition to new technologies such as blockchain, Davivienda is always exploring alternative tools. For instance, hybrid instruments. We were the first bank in Colombia to issue this type of bond, and also thematic bonds. Together with the IDB, we had the first bond of gender in Latin America. And this is part because innovation is not only technology, we are also innovating processes and products. And this is linked to meeting goals. This is new because we as a bank meet with a certain amount of disbursements to women, to heads of family. This will make costs to go down. So we will make sure that the real purposes for which the bond is issued are met. We have $775 million in multilateral credits and international agents, which are hybrid because they have capital, but also thematic issues. For instance, financing for gender-based or for MSMEs. So we have instruments that combine both characteristics. So they are hybrid instruments which are theme issues. And we want to explore this because we want to bring this to the capital market. Right now, there are traditional credits, but we hope to bring this to the capital market. So if we put all this together, hybrid and thematic instruments added to the use of new technology, which we hope to obtain through regulatory changes, then we are hoping that we will not only have products that are 100% traditional, we're bringing additional value to the markets, and this will result in its development, not only in Colombia, but also in the region. Thank you. Thank you so much, Catalina. Your comments are very interesting. The importance of incorporating social aspects and also to provide opportunity for theme bonds and environmental bonds. And this shows how relevant it is to think about a future blockchain theme bond. We will now listen to Ana Maria Zuluaga, who, because we have heard that supervisor and regulators play a central role. Ana Maria is the director of INOA in Colombia. She has been at the heart of the entire process of development and implementation of the Sandbox and is participating in very innovative projects. Ana Maria, you have the floor. Please tell us which are the lessons learned on this project. What happened in the Sandbox of the superintendency? Thank you. Good day. I am so sorry. The internet connection is really bad. So I'm talking to you from my cell phone. Thank you so much for the invitation. This is a very valuable space to show many market participants how it is possible to innovate and how all participants from the private and public sector and the multilaterals are involved, and we are really interested in having great impact. I would like to tell you something from the point of view of a financial superintendency whose main task is to protect consumers and investors, but in addition, we are looking after the stability of the financial system, which were the challenge of this disruptive projects. And the first challenge was to change the mindset or the culture of the supervisor. I believe that we all know that the financial system until the year 2010 was in a very peaceful valley with the same things. Everybody was doing the same thing the same way. But as of 2008, everything changed. And we went through a very important moment, the fintechs, the fourth industrial revolution and blockchain, which created an important disruption to the way things are done. So this first challenge in practical terms for the superintendency meant that staff had to be trained, tell them what is a blockchain, why should we do this in this way instead of stick to the traditional existing system. And this work was done on a daily basis. In addition to changing this, we had to figure out how to supervise. As Alejandro mentioned, this concept is a specific concept which taught us a lot. In this case, for the superintendency, the entire process, from the time the authorization is requested for a bond, which used to be done in traditional ways through correspondence systems, which were designed for a financial system of the 90s to change to what we have now. So we really had to sit down and see how we could generate a link between that system, the way to supervise that we had, and this technology, which is beneficial as far as traceability with regard to access of the participants, the possibility to innovate, as Catalina said. So we literally had to sit down and tell the supervisors, those that are traditional lawyers, look, the documentation and the prospect is not going to arrive in this way. You can go to the blockchain and this is where you're going to review it. So this mobilization was very valuable from the area of supervision. These changes about the way things are done are already in the sandbox. Now, I'm not saying that everything has been solved. We have the next challenge, the standard adjustment, because regulations are written for a tangible world, a world that was digitalized, but it was centralized. Now we are changing the model. And one of the most interesting elements of this pilot was that with this agreement of the blockchain, where we had authorities such as the Bank of the República, the financial superintendency, and the players and the Vivienda, which had different roles, and also through smart contracts and the entire infrastructure. We managed to obtain that this bond was an NFE. Yes, what does this mean? Yes, we can have a Mimi for a cat, but we can have an NFI, which was under custody in virtue of a specific agreement. So we were saying, look at the potential that we have to stop having intermediaries for certain activities, but we're always aware of the fact that we are guaranteeing principles of transparency, equity, segmentation of activities, and competencies. And finally, there is a challenge which Catalina has somehow mentioned. So what to do next? And from the superintendency, when we have pilots in the sandbox, if the pilots are successful, clearly we have to look at the standard aspects. We have to take into account that there will be a second phase for the pilots, which will be more real, more close to reality, leveraged on all the lessons learned, and where we are going to have other participants negotiation, which is very important. at the time of carrying out the supervision of the market. We want to take the results of this pilot and the next pilot in order to go out to the market with standards that are wider and more integrated, because this was a test for a particular or specific concept. And this is very much allied with their regulatory agenda, because by 2023, they are going to be working on how the adoption of technologies in the market can be adopted and implemented. And I believe that it is important to mention that regulation cannot only be given for specific technology. This is not what we're looking for, but blockchain is different because it is changing the way from going from centralized to decentralizing elements. So the traditional model of information storage and the traditional transaction model. So this is why at the level of the superintendency, our innovation 2.0, and this is going to happen over the next 4 years. We're going to work on different issues in order to help adopt this technology, because it is traceable, transparent, and we should all be informed. And this is very important in the stock exchanges. The superintendency has information or bilateral information sources. So it's supervised Davivienda. For instance, it will ask some things, but this is bilateral. Davivienda will have bilateral relations with its peers. Other participants, other investors go to the market. So we are saying we have a technology that will allow all of us to know under certain important considerations whether this information must be shared or not, understanding that it is an open blockchain. But we are all involved, and we should all find out almost in real time where is the transaction right now, who has done what. And this innovation of the superintendency will help us to work. We have pilots in the pipeline, such as this one, and we are trying to prepare some guidelines for the adoption of technology. But once again, understanding that we need to have basic principles, governance, ethics, transparency, because there are important elements with regard to smart contracts. Who is going to define them? So these aspects are very important, and these new tools should also allow us to maximize this in the market. So in Colombia, we still have this at a very high level. We have very few people, and we want that all the population and the MSMEs can also participate, including agricultural populations. This is all I had to tell you right now, Ana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ana Maria. Now we have some questions from our audience. The first one is very interesting. It is asking about other countries and other players. What would they need to do in order to implement something similar in their jurisdiction? So you will all respond if you like. I'll start with Alejandro, and if you have anything to add, please go ahead. I think that will be very interesting. And thinking not just about the technological aspect, but the rest of it, human resources, institutional requirements, etc. So Alejandro, if you agree, you can get started, and then you can each take the floor to see what you think other jurisdictions would need to do something similar. Thank you very much, Ana Maria. I think in order to replicate this experience elsewhere, the first thing we need to do is bear in mind that that holistic perspective is very important. It's not just a technology project. You're changing the culture and the operation of the market. And this means that you need to bring all the participants together from the beginning, in particular the regulators. That's one of the most important lessons we learned. And you need to understand this ecosystem. Where is it headed? What are you creating? There was a question about Bitcoin and blockchain. I think digital currencies are a separate topic. Perhaps what has happened recently shows the ever greater need for central banks to issue their own digital currencies in order to be a part of that ecosystem. So that broad vision is important, bringing in, including the regulators. And Javier Jara said something interesting in his presentation. You need to combine the technical aspect with the business aspect. The team we put together was a totally multidisciplinary team. You see it in the panelists and in our team as well. We had lawyers, regulators, technology experts, business experts. You need to look at the whole picture. And it's also clear that you need sandboxes and pilot projects. But the most important thing ultimately is for there to be the will, the interest on the part of the market and the regulators to do something transformational. In Spain, for example, we've seen that what they do is take the blockchain technology and put it underneath an infrastructure that already exists, but this is not generating any real change in the behavior of the markets. So that desire for transformational change, then you need to understand the whole panorama as a whole, and then bring in a whole team, include the regulators, and make sure that you have a way to lift regulatory restrictions for those tests in order to test it. Thank you, Sandra. Do you have anything you'd like to add from your perspective? Yes, thank you, Ana Maria. Very briefly, I have two comments to add. First of all, you need a certain level of development in your capital market so that this technology can take advantage of what the market has advanced and multiply it and enhance it. So the capital market has to have a certain minimum level of development to actually really be able to take advantage of that technology. And second, the openness of the regulators, of the oversight, those in charge of oversight, to be open to it and be able to and willing to test it to see if it actually works. That effort and that openness by the regulator to be willing to take that risk for the good of the market is also a key element. Thank you, Sandra. What does the issuer need from your perspective? I think the issuer needs to have a culture of innovation. And this is something that was shown by Davivienda. We live and breathe innovation in our daily processes. So getting to the point where we're going to issue bonds through a new technology requires mobilizing several different teams. And as Alejandro said, this was a multidisciplinary project, even within the issuer itself, this willingness to try new things, to innovate, to take risks, that's something that the issuer needs to have as well. And also a certain level of development regarding technology and certain investments in technology as well that are rather significant investments. But for us, we realized that it was worth it for that value proposition. And the issuer can also contribute proposals as to what can be done. We need to have an active role. We don't just have to wait and see how things change. Here in this situation, we were able to propose certain regulatory changes. So we need to all have that willingness to take action and incentivize transformations in the market. That's very important coming from the issuer as well. Thank you, Catalina. Ana Maria, what would be your recommendation for regulators and oversight entities? Well, a lot of what has been said already were ideas that I had on my list. But I could add, in addition to that openness that Sandra was talking about, which is key, and openness in terms of the inner workings of an authority, the financial superintendents in our case, you need to have a very clear view coming from all the way from the top, a clear mission to innovate. Well, we've seen from different authorities in Singapore, in the US as well, an innovation area is created in these countries with the idea that this unit will leverage all these ideas within the organization. But for that to happen, then there needs to be a change inside. And we need to understand that a pilot project is not a priority, but you need to value it and learn from it, because this will help you at a certain point. And those teams that are built up, that's the decision of other countries. They need to be multidisciplinary. That's another extremely important element in our group. We have attorneys, economists, managers, designers, systems engineers. And we need to let go of that paradigm, that idea that because I'm an economist and not an attorney, I can't understand a regulation or a standard and I can't give any opinions about it. No, we can all talk about it. That's a new business model that we need to adopt. So that would be the suggestion. There has to be a strategy from the top, from authority, and certain people, let's say, need to be assigned to this. And you need to be proactive. Maybe they would tell us, just figure this out and make it happen. So all these elements are very important. And we became project managers in a way, knocking on doors through the financial consumer or in terms of information disclosure, that there is a lot that needs to be discussed with others about this. Internally, we need to talk about this, but to do that, we need to have the technical knowledge and understand the business very well. This is not just a PR, you need to understand it and to mobilize internally all those officials within the authorities, and also so we can be that point of contact, that link. We're sort of a mediator translating between two different languages. So those would be my suggestions. Thank you very much, Ana Maria. Great that we've ended on the note of discussing the importance of human resources for technological changes because of that cultural change that we need as well. Well, this concludes our panel. Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to moderate this panel. Thank you, Ana Maria. Thank you to our panelists as well. I think it's quite clear that in order for innovation to happen, you need to have a regulator that not only has the capacity, but also the will to support the innovators and generate changes in financial markets. Before we formally close our meeting, I'd like to thank Olga Cantillo from the Ibero-American Federation of Exchanges, Javier Jara as well from the America's Depositories Association, and to all the panelists who were a part of this CapiLAC. I also want to thank the financial authorities, superintendencies, and central banks and others that have people in the audience representing them, to everyone who's participated in this year's CapiLAC. I think there's a number of tasks and calls to action that we have in front of us that gives us something to do. And thank you to the leadership of Juan Antonio Ketterer. This is his last CapiLAC. As I said on the first day, there would be no CapiLAC without him. And just some quick thoughts about the first day. With the huge number of new thematic bonds, $136 billion approximately. That's a lot of money in Latin America and the Caribbean. And the issues regarding information disclosure became very prominent, took on great importance. And I'd like to remind you that in the first few months of 2023, we will be publishing a document jointly with GRI, with the support of some consulting groups and with the input from people from the IDB team, among whom we can count Jaime Sarmiento. And I also had a chance to be a part of this, so I could understand how we're doing in the region regarding disclosure. And this is the most important topic for next year because disclosure makes it possible to be transparent. We can minimize greenwashing, and it makes it possible to have taxonomies and carbon markets. And also it makes it possible to have the thematic bonds in the first place. So it's a very important topic. So we are expecting to have that publication ready by early 2023. It'll be ready to share with you, and it's addressed to 4 groups: investors, issuers, market infrastructures, and of course, capital market regulators. So that first point is important, together with the second point, which is that carbon markets are also important as they are an opportunity for us. And as the Inter-American Development Bank, we are working on developing those carbon markets in the region. And we believe that the existing market infrastructure have a very significant role to play here. The second day, we talked about SMS, micro, small, and medium-sized enterprise financing. We had a chance to listen to Professor Altman, and we have a study that will also be published in early next year. And this will come with the document on disclosure. And in this one, we will talk about the region and how it compares to experiences in other parts of the world regarding MSME financing options. And this is key as well, because these companies are 99.5% of our industry. They are a huge employer. In some countries, they represent over half of GDP. So these are very important businesses for our region, and financing is on our to-do list. So finding solutions and looking at success stories such as one we had from Colombia allows us to think beyond what we have and see how we can use capital markets so we can move forward with the financing of these companies. And now we had today a very interesting discussion as well. Technology undoubtedly will have a strong impact on capital markets in the coming years. And it's important for you to know that the entire blockchain bond process will be documented. This will be in a document that will also be published early next year. For our CapiLAC event, we want to end, which will be at the end of the first quarter of the year. And by that time, we will have that report is going to be public good, because it's important for that experience to be documented and to be replicable. There are a lot of lessons learned. There's a lot of room for improvement after the first issue of a blockchain bond in the region, but it also shows how many opportunities there are. And as our panel speakers said, there will be a phase 2 of this project, and there we can apply the lessons we've learned and see how it would work. And for the second phase, we would have the participation of the Colombian Securities Exchange, as we said yesterday. So there's sustainability, support to micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, and technology. These three topics represent a commitment for supervisors and regulators, the private sector as well, and in particular, the market infrastructure and all actors in the market in general. It's important to say that those who participate in the market also play a role in adopting technologies, sustainability, etc. So for us, there's a commitment of supporting supervisors and regulators and continue to support the private sector through FIAB and ABSPA as the regional associations that are leading these changes and this transformation. And we will continue to support the capital markets. 2 weeks ago, we were in the Dominican Republic studying capital markets there, trying to see how we could improve them. And we will continue to work on that all over the region, as we have been doing. And for supervisors and regulators, you can count on us. The IDB is a friend and supporter for the changes you want to make. There are technical support agreements for technical assistance, for innovation, for sustainability. Don't forget, you know where to find us. So please don't hesitate to do so. Thank you once again. And in closing, I just wanted to ask you to please fill out our survey. There you have the QR codes for the survey in English and in Spanish. Please help us out with this. Your opinion is very important. And if there are other topics that you think we should cover during our 2023 CapiLAC, please let us know. They will be included if you want them to be. Technology, for example, and specifically investment apps. That was a topic that was mentioned in last year's survey, and we included it. So that's why we need your comments. We will act on your input for next year's CapiLAC. Please don't forget also that you can send your suggestions to CapiLAC at iadb.org, our email. Thank you to all participants once again. And I hope you will be doing well. Don't forget to be a part of our networks. And early next year, we'll have fintech LAC. Please join us. We'll discuss topics of interest to capital markets as well. Thank you once again. Thank you to the technical team and the team of the IDB that helped us organize this event. Thank you very much and goodbye.